Hi there, welcome to my newest episode of Jalan Jalan. Today I'm going to take you through the hills above Jimbaran. These are the hills in an area called Bukit Bintang, Savannah Lowlands, and as we move through this area, I hope to reveal the incredible view that opens up on these hillsides. Okay, the topic I want to cover today is about management, because management is something that as an entrepreneur or an investor or as an owner of a business in Bali, you're going to have to forcefully cross over at some point. And I know a lot of people say they're not good managers, and they self-accuse themselves of not understanding management. But I can readily assure you that without correct, at least management intuition, you're not going to be successful in Bali at all. That's the unfortunate truth. So I'll tell you the story of how I blundered in management for many, many years, and hopefully these mistakes don't need to be repeated again by anybody who's seeking to start a business or even be able to grow or continue their business now in 2026. Okay, so the first problem with management, and this is once again one of the reasons why I'm doing this, is I think it's a matter of education. A lot of people get their, let's say, understanding or intuition of management from the wrong people. They are not listening to actual people with management experience. They are scrolling on LinkedIn, or they're reading self-help books by so-called gurus at bookstores. And I think that fundamentally is the wrong direction. If you're going to learn about management, you should probably learn about it with somebody who practices management and is actively doing it every day. Because, oh wow, you can see the kind of the view open up here now. It's beautiful from horizon to horizon. I think you can kind of see it on the drone. I'll lift the drone up a little bit. There you go. Okay, it's a little bit thin, but it's there. So that's the view of all of the north part of Bali there. But getting back to our story about management, the first is you should definitely select somebody with management experience. And the second part about management that is why it's difficult to acquire this knowledge, why it's difficult to acquire management education, you could say, is that it is deeply politically incorrect to talk about the techniques and practices that are effective but are not so socially acceptable. So you're not going to hear a lot of management advice spoken outside of places like trusted circles. You're having a whiskey in somebody's living room in their villa. They'll if they have managed people, they'll tell you about it. Okay, but probably not something you'd hear in a public space. But as a result of that, I find that the downside of a lack of management education is often worse than just to deal with some of the social inacceptability of talking about it. So I'm going to try it. I'm going to attempt to talk about my perspectives on management. Okay. So one of the first things that most business owners will find difficult in their first moments in Bali is the HR part, is the hiring part. Yesterday I was with the young lady, and she was revealing to me a condition of how it was difficult to actually hire people in the local village where she was opening her business. And I'll tell you what I told her. I said, that's obvious. And the reason it might not be obvious to a first-time entrepreneur is because a first-time entrepreneur is probably thinking about the situation from a logistical or from a logical perspective. They're looking for waiters, they're looking for, staff, simple, routine manual jobs of low skill, and they want to hire from obviously the area around because it benefits the local economy, plus it's easier to so-called find people. And yeah, it just makes sense, right? Why not hire from an area where you're already there, right? The commute is shorter, the less expense needed for, all these other things. But what I've found over and over in Bali is that generally speaking, the people immediate around the area are the least qualified to actually work in any business. And the reason for that is not because of any particular lack of skill. It's generally due to a lack of motivation. So when you have people who are traveling to Bali or from other parts of Indonesia coming here, you can be certain that career is a very important priority in their lives. But for somebody who has been existing in relative, let's say, harmony with their village and with their family, generally speaking, their priorities is not work. And so any particular religious obligation, like today for Galungan, or any particular family obligation, they're just simply not going to be prioritizing work over that. Because work, I mean, you're a new person. You're a new boss, supposedly. They probably also have another challenge here, okay? And this is a practical challenge to, once again, both Indonesian people who are Balinese working here and also to the owners employing them, which is, besides the family paradigm, which is, you know, your relationship with your family, many Balinese people don't have the other paradigm. They don't have the mindset of what a employee-boss relationship should be in a practical sense. And there's not a lot of places that they can actually learn that from, unless there's a large number of people working in that village, okay? So generally, also based on my observation, everybody in the cities like Denpasar and the large residential areas, they all have jobs because they need to pay rent. But people in villages oftentimes have a pretty high unemployment rate because or maybe not unemployed, maybe they are employed as, let's say, a priest or a wood carver, or working in some traditionally important role to sustain the culture and traditions of that village, but not like really interfacing with an outsider like perhaps yourself, right? Like in a modern job, working as a barista in a cafe or anything like that. So this becomes challenging because you basically then need to instill the culture of what a work relationship is going to be like, because like I said, again, the default relationship everybody generally turns to is family. So that becomes a problem, and that becomes where I think as an owner you generally have a few choices, okay? So as an owner and as a leader of people, and also as a leader of your managers, you're going to have to decide at some point, do you want to treat your employees as family, or do you want to treat your employees like people who work for you, okay? There's a big difference here, okay? So I went through a huge struggle going from treating my employees as a family to treating them more like people who work for me. And I'll tell you why that's a good idea, okay? The first thing is that no matter how much you want to believe it, people who work for you are not your family, okay? You have family. Family does not resign, okay? Family does not decide that because there's a better financial gain somewhere else, that they should leave what you're doing at the moment you need them the most and abandon you there, okay? Family tends to actually call upon the opposite, right? Like when you want family, you want them when you're having the greatest struggles. And I've been the only person in my own events. I've been the last person along with my wife too, as well, in our companies as there was failure days. I've been very left behind on those dark days where everybody, sensing that there's no more paychecks coming, have either decided that it's not worth being on a sinking ship, or, you know, I gotta save myself, right? My boss will save himself. So you have that happen a few times to you in Bali, and you start realizing this paradigm is not working, okay? This paradigm of treating your employees like family is not working. In fact, you eventually realize it's a type of intellectual laziness. It's like you're treating them as employees because you yourself are unwilling to learn the arts and the knowledge of management. And by the way, By the way, I have a treat for you guys, okay? Read this book, the Drucker book on management. If you've ever managed people in Bali, I know it's written by an American, but the principles, I'm certain at this point, are universal, okay? The principles are truly universal for management. But I wish I read this book like years ago. I would have saved myself, I'm trying to get this book back in my bag. Excuse me for a moment. I would have saved myself a ton of grief. And the reason is because every preventable mistake that I've ever made was acknowledged in case by case and also explained in detail why it would happen. Drucker is a magnificent author, and I think he really illustrates a deep proficiency in understanding how to manage people, okay? I'll give you a case. I'll give you a pretty simple case. This is the Peter principle. This is happening to us right now. Like this morning, we were just talking about this in our morning meeting. So the case is we have a housekeeper. She's excellent. She does extraordinarily well, diligent, on time, high integrity, never had any problems with her. So therefore, of course, we take the natural decision to promote her. We make her a captain. So now, instead of being an individual contributor, she is also in charge of leading a team of 7 or 8 other housekeepers. And they're equipped with everything they need. They have the latest AI tools, they have automated scheduling systems, they have people who have degrees from the equivalent of MIT in Indonesia supervising them. But this housekeeping captain is struggling right now. She's struggling because of something that I'll share with you. It's called the Peter principle. And the Peter principle happens all the time. It's basically this. When somebody is doing good, you promote them. When they're doing even better, you promote them. And eventually you land them into the job that they absolutely cannot do. And you have a higher order failure. That's very counterintuitive, but it happens over and over again. Somebody who is a great housekeeper might not be a great leader. In fact, the skill sets to be a great leader are oftentimes completely different. So in the case of this housekeeper, what she failed to do was 3 of her subordinates decided all to resign at the same time, leaving quite a gap in the service structure. I mean, it's nothing we can't manage. This has happened before. This is, there's many things we can do to alleviate this, but this is definitely not something that we should be expecting from a leader over and over again. And then we dug around, and I'll share another funny insight with you guys. The digging around never stops. That means as an owner, you need to keep on probing to try to figure out what that root reason is, because once you think you found one, you dig a little deeper, you find another, and then you dig a little bit deeper and you find probably another one after that. Okay, so basically, the root reason was none of these 3 housekeepers have been actually passed after their probation. Well, basically it means that we generally start housekeepers at a lower salary when they begin, but after they finish probation, they're afforded an opportunity to be promoted and paid more. But none of these 3 were actually promoted, and it wasn't because they weren't actually doing the job. I mean, some of them weren't that great, but the main reason was that this housekeeping captain had not administered any promotions or even realized that the probation period was over. So she basically didn't make any decisions. And as a result, these housekeepers were pretty much, you could say that they were underpaid for their work for the past few months. And, so-called captain didn't realize that that was the job. So-called captain realized that what she should do is to lend a helpful hand, right? And here's another problem that you need to realize as a manager in Indonesia. You got to read people's minds. I don't know how to actually tell you that differently, but you really have to read people's minds. Because most of the time people will not tell you, especially if they are of the lower on the job pyramid they are on, the less willing they're going to talk about their career problems with you. That's because they're afraid of you. They don't trust you. They think you're too far above, or, they're ashamed of having to bring their lowly problems to you or whatever it is. They would rather just find a less truthful but more convenient way to avoid the problem altogether, like finding a new job, right? And of course, I mean, they have their problems too. If they keep on doing that, of course, how are they ever going to be able to attain a career? But like back to my first point, a lot of people's goals is not to attain a career. It's your job to read people's minds. So basically, as a supervisor, as a manager, you have to anticipate when these moments are happening. You have to be able to read and understand, oh, okay, look, I forgot to do this, because you're not going to get feedback from the person whose career is waiting for you to remember that they need to be moved on to the next stage of their career. Okay, so basically, like I said, not a irrecoverable mistake, but definitely unfortunate in the sense that, it could, I guess it could have been, I don't know, maybe it could not have been prevented. You need a person to look after, I guess you need a person to look after the person looking after the people that you want managed, right? So then you just kind of actually deepen the supervision at some point. Okay, so let's take a moment to kind of pause and reflect on that. Okay, moment over. So that's what I mean. As basically an owner of businesses in Bali, this particular skill set I'll break down into two components, okay? Number one, to be good at managing businesses in Bali, you really need to develop very good interpersonal intelligence, which means that you need to be able to read how people are feeling and understand their point of view with very little clues, with very little information being offered to you. Okay, that's just simply the way it is. If you want directness and clarity, you should set up a business in Germany. You should set up a business in Singapore, where I think communication about uncomfortable subjects flows a lot more freely, because there's no risk of shame. It's more, let's say, acculturated to be able to share bad news quickly. But if you're going to do a business in Bali, ultimately, you got to get really good. If you're going to use people, of course, okay? If you're going to employ people, you can have a business where maybe you go on YouTube and do videos, and probably you don't need a very large team to do that. But if you're going to have people, like you're going to run a restaurant or a hotel or any of these things, you do need to develop interpersonal intelligence. But the next thing you really need to develop is you need to develop a skill or intuition, or be able to prompt on ChatGPT about management questions. Because I would say 90% of the failures I've seen in all the businesses that have come and gone in my 20 years here in Bali, it's mostly a breakdown between the owner and the manager, or the manager and the employees. Because let's face it, I mean, it doesn't require a huge amount of, let's say, it doesn't require a huge amount of skill to change bed linens or make cocktails or serve coffee, okay? These are all fairly trainable skills in a short amount of time. But what it takes a lifetime to learn is to read a situation correctly, understand who is responsible, remove nonsensical noise from the conversation so that you can reach first principles and root causes. And then once that part is clear, have the right mindset, understanding that the people who work for you are employees, they're not family. Thinking of them as family is, I think, negligence of you as an owner and manager to do your job and understand the knowledge necessary to effectively run teams. And be less indulgent and more driven to succeed, okay? And the reason I say this is this. I think of it as a bit of tough love, okay? Nobody who received a short-term benefit from kindness or tolerance or understanding. Nobody that I've ever seen really had that result in a longer term benefit. They generally just eventually decided that, you know, they wouldn't positively transform, and they would just seek whoever was going to lie to them the most. That's the saddest thing, right? When you're addicted to praise or treatment that is inflated beyond your capabilities, that to the person being managed ultimately spoils them. Okay, all right, looks like I need to catch the drone, and that's about 20 minutes at this point, right? So we'll stop there. Wait, I'll try to catch the drone as I am recording again, like I did that one time in Pineda. Okay, let's see, I think I can do it. Okay, here we go. Okay, come on. All right. I got it. All right, super cool. All right, that's it for this episode of Jalan Jalan. Once again, I'll be releasing these videos on Wednesdays. I'll try to hit every Wednesday I can, because I have a lot to talk about and a lot of management cases to share, hopefully saving people time. Sorry, I just laughed because I realized that I've been walking through a dumping site for asbestos, and I'm going to stand on the upwind side of that, but oh God, can you believe that? Yeah, one of my favorite places to have a stroll, and now it's just an asbestos dumping ground. That shit is toxic. It's carcinogenic, but hey, well, maybe better management education can help resolve situations like that over there too as well. All right, that's it. Hopefully you've reached the end of the video. If you do like what you see, give me ideas. I mean, I want this to be an open conversation. I hope that, you know, like, people can share what their management challenges are. I actually really enjoy solving management problems for free, okay? And I do it for free at a university level at Berkeley. In fact, if you saw the logo on the back of my shirt, that's the SCET, stands for Sitarja Center of Entrepreneurship and Technology, where I've been invited a few times to actually give guest lectures and also mentor some of the entrepreneurial minded students at Berkeley to you know, start their own businesses, which is becoming more and more urgent these days as AI is taking over many lower rung jobs. Yeah. Okay, anyway, I'm not fake coughing. I think that asbestos is getting in my lungs. I'm gonna get out of here. All right, see you guys.